the government of Norway for walking the walk and taking leadership in facilitating these talks. Equally, we regret that the talks have broken down. And we remind people that dialogue remains critical if there is to be a meaningful outcome and benefit for the Venezuelan people and its neighbors, not just its neighbors on the Latin American continent, but its neighbors in the Caribbean Sea, because people forget that Trinidad and Tobago is less than 7 miles from the coast of Venezuela. Our Caribbean Sea must remain a zone of peace, and for that we shall fight. Mr. President, I speak plainly and without fear, because from independence, Barbados' foreign policy has been premised on the simple principle of friends of all, satellites of none. Barbados, therefore, has always remained and will remain proud to have Cuba as a treasured friend. Barbados established relationships with the People's Republic of China when others failed to. We may be small, but we are principled. Our relationship is based with Cuba on a historical foundation rooted in solidarity, cooperation, and complementarity of a common Caribbean civilization. And we say that the long-standing economic embargo on Cuba continues to be a cause of serious concern. I reaffirm Barbados' strong opposition to this unilateral action, and more so, the recent activation of Article 3 of the Helms-Burton Law imposes new restrictions and further exacerbates the situation. And I ask you here, to what end? To what end? The continued attempt to stop the people of Cuba from living with basic human dignity is unacceptable. Mr. President, it is time that the global community recognizes that small island developing states are truly equal partners in the international arena, and that our special development needs must be taken into account in the multilateral forum. Growth in the economies of the developed states, we contend, must not come at the existence of the very viability of small developing statements. Small children have a phrase for it. They call that cowardice. They call that bullying. They call that crowding out. We ask for fairness, equity, and opportunity to take our legitimate place in the global community. That is all. That was the promise of our membership of this organization. And I know that today I have a duty to acknowledge and commend the heroic efforts of our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who is swimming against the rising tide of anti-multilateralism and anti-globalism, navigating the dangerous currents of dwindling resources and resisting, my friends, the efforts to set adrift all of the excellent work done over the last 7.5 decades by leaders across the world and his predecessors to ensure development, peace, and the dignity of human family. As a small nation, we're not only committed to multilateralism, we also understand that it is the one thing that protects our sovereignty and our ability to navigate in this world. It is our buffer against the display of might, and it is our shield against tyranny. We continue to view the United Nations as an important mechanism for achieving international peace and security and sustainable development for all countries, but in particular for the most vulnerable. Historic examples have proven that national interests are best advanced by pursuing collaboration, partnership, and a multilateral approach. No country trades or grows its economy on its own. Therefore, a multilateral trading system and an international economic order which respond to the needs of all nations, even the smallest, is of critical importance, and all of us in here know it. It is for that reason that Barbados intends to and hopes to host the 15th session of UNCTAD in October next year, 2020. We will be the first small island nation ever to host the UNCTAD conference, and Barbados welcomes the unique opportunity to work with others, our partners, to shape the trade and development agenda of the organization for the next 4 years, conscious that if ever small island developing states needed to be at the center of those discussions, it is now. To discuss trade and climate, trade and the blue economy, sustainable development for our people. And we look forward to forming those critical partnerships with all UN member states to make UNCTAD 15 an inclusive and a successful event. Mr. President, the United Nations exists to identify the commonalities to help us get past the working differences. As I said earlier, there is no progress without communication, and there is no progress without talking to each other. If the consequences of not talking to each other, my friends, are a little less sleep, then it is okay, and we can accept that. But when the consequences are the loss of life and the loss of livelihood, then we are in trouble. And that is why then there are those who will believe that we are invisible. Because those who should know better and who can do more are turning a blind eye and with impunity. If the truth be told, how many times have we been ignored on too many matters? And I ask myself, really, how many times are we going to come and make the same speech from this platform? SIDS are the canaries of the international community. You will ignore us at your peril. We are the canaries. We are only noticed, regrettably, when it is time to garner votes or to support seats on the Security Council, or when a person wants a candidate to head up an international organization. For real. It's only then that real value is placed on us. And you ask yourself, how can people be so transparent and so lacking in dignity and conscience? May I remind you, as I had cause to do earlier this week, that the Alliance of Small Island States represents 20% of the membership of this august body, 43 states, and our votes and our voices do count. They do, but our lives and our dignity count more. We are committed to action, to taking the necessary action to overcome the deleterious effects of that which threatens to destroy us, climate change. As Dylan Thomas wrote, and I quote, "We will rage against the light and not go silent into that good, or should I rather say that dark night." The world, my friends, is at a crossroads. And we continue to be reminded of it as recently as this morning with the speeches that we have heard. This United Nations will only survive if it remains relevant to the needs of our people and to solving the great problems, not all, but the great problems of our time and the challenges of humanity, saving where we live, living with others with respect and dignity and in peace, and supporting equality, not supporting the dominance of any one race or any one religion or any one sect. The only way this mission of this entity can be guaranteed is if country by country, and multilaterally I may add, we stand on principle, on the principles that have protected us from another great war for the last 74 years. Thank God for those principles and our avoidance of that great war. And the principles that have inspired us continually to achieve and maintain human dignity and prosperity as we set about reaching the SDGs. The baton, my friends, is now with us. It is our turn. Will we hold it firmly and continue the race to help the marginalized, those unseen and those without voice, really the forgotten of this world? Or will we drop the baton when we know better from the experiences of the last century where so many died needlessly? My country and my region are clear as to where we stand. There is no war worth it. There is no profit sufficiently large to be worth the price of war or the destruction of our planet. The people of Barbados, and I as their leader, choose to honor the legacy of our great civilization, our freedom fighters who fought